Welcome to episode 7 of simPRO Chats with Daz and Adz. I'm Darren Whitby, and with me as always is...
I'm Adam McVeigh from amak Consulting. Good to be back, Daz.
Good to be back. All right, so today we're going to be talking about simPRO Mobile Update version 5.4. We have just a quick episode today, just a few little topics. And to be honest, I actually think this is a pretty good update. It's made simPRO Mobile much more stable and all the little things that it allows you to do a little bit faster. Why don't we get straight into it? And let's talk about the auto update schedule when you change dates. So what that's doing is essentially updating what you see when you open your app. And if you change dates, it updates it again.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you remember what was happening before?
Oh, I don't, Daz. Why don't you enlighten me?
Well, I don't know that anything special was happening before, but essentially it would download some data. Mm-hmm. And when you change dates, sometimes it wasn't the latest data that it was working with. So this pretty much solves that problem. Anytime you sort of go to the day view, it should essentially show you then the current list of schedules that you've got. I've also noticed when you hit that little refresh, it's a little bit faster as well.
Yeah, it looks like there's been a lot of kind of like little behind the scenes enhancements happen with this one that seems to have, I would say stabilized it, but it's been pretty stable now for a good few months, I reckon. This is just kind of now adding that little bit of polish back on top. But there is a really cool feature that's been released that we'll talk about shortly, which is a bit of a tease. So the next one, what's the next one? So the quick schedule update for every day. We just actually spoke about that.
That's essentially, it updates much faster than it used to, hey?
Yeah, and also the UI looks a little bit nicer when you tap on that little date box too. Yeah. You get the, like a more of a calendar view that you'd be more used to seeing, especially... I'm not going to say on an Android phone, but I don't know what it's like on an Apple device, but I assume it's something similar. But it's more of a calendar view than just kind of like a scroll bar or anything like that. So it looks quite nice. It looks nice and tidy.
Yeah, before you had the date selector, and I don't think it showed you what days of the week it was. So if you want to go back to last Monday, you'd have to kind of think, okay, today is Tuesday. So then last Monday was 8 days ago, which means, and it's trial and error sometimes.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that it's just a little thing, but it makes it just much nicer to use.
Yeah, totally. Well, let's get into the real juicy one that's got a fair bit of phone, because this one should make a lot of people, especially our technicians out in the field, much happier. And it should also make everyone's life in the office a little bit easier too. So the next one is to essentially have an override time instead of just allowing the app to update your times based on the statuses. So one of the things that mobile has always done natively and by default is it works off status time. So you hit start travel, start work, finish job. And I mean, I'm not going to go into that too much because we kind of exhausted that in the 6.5 hour video we did on mobile a few weeks back. So this one essentially is letting you just now override your status times with manual times. Essentially the exact same way that Connect worked, where you can either check into the job and that starts your clock. However, if you forgot to check in and you think, oh, crikey, I forgot to hit start work, I actually got here an hour ago, you can now override those times, being your status times, with manual times that you've actually decided to capture or override inside the job card, which is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. What he said. What was happening before though is that you were able to technically edit the times, and then people were complaining that when they submit the job at the end, it was overriding those times and putting the start time and stop time in, not what they'd entered manually, but what they clicked on. And that, obviously they spent the time in to fix it, and then simPRO would undo that and put start to finish on. So this is great. It's actually pretty easy to use. A little switch on and off to say, are we using the clock on times or are we using this overriding time that you've just put in, which is great. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. Sorry, you go.
I was going to say, I'm going to skip one because I want to jump straight to my favorite one, which is the what you see is what you get.
Actually, before we go in there, can I just add one more little comment to that new feature?
Yeah.
For those that are a little bit concerned with the technicians overriding the times rather than submitting the actual times, simPRO Mobile will still submit the GPS stamps where you were when you got to site, started travel, and submitted the job card too. So if you're concerned that if they're overriding the times, you're going to lose the ability to see where they were, you won't. The GPS stamps will still filter through in that mobile tab of the job card. It's just that this is going to save you a little bit of time by adding their actual time blocks based on what they've submitted rather than just the status times.
Exactly right. You'll still know what time they click the buttons, but you'll also see what time they've overridden to say how long they've worked. So my favorite,
What's your favorite, Daz? What is it? Tell me. I can't wait. I'm jumping out of my skin. What do you got?
What you see is what you get for work completed notes.
Woo!
So if you've got a script that you've put into simPRO that the techs can select from their mobile app, now all of the formatting will stick. They can then add their own formatting. You can create scripts. I mean, things like quote required, create that as a script. Put bold text, maybe highlight it in red or yellow text highlighting background, so that when that note comes through, that's going to really flash up to you that something needs to be done, that there's a quote required or some other issue like that as well, or follow-up required or something. They can select that. Also, you can even put tables and things into your script, which when they select, it will put the table in the work notes for them. But what I really like is if you've gone to all the effort of creating these scripts and they all look pretty, they'll format that way straight across into the invoice as well. Whereas before it was stripping all the formatting and just going back to basic text. And then on the invoice, you'd have to then make it bold and highlight and change the font size and do all that stuff to make it look nice again. So I think that's fantastic. And you can do the same in a few other areas too. So tech notes, that was a throw to you, by the way.
I'm sorry. You look so happy freestyling over there with the new feature. I thought I'd just let you go.
So tech notes and purchase order notes can also have the same treatment, which is fantastic. What else have we got in this mobile update?
That was a pretty clear throw. Okay, cool. So audits auto go to the next question if it's empty. So I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I don't think we really need to spend a lot of time on that. It's basically just if the next question's empty, it's just kind of going to skip to the next folder. It's just kind of making the whole audit sequence a lot quicker.
It is so much faster.
Yeah.
So much faster. My audits very rarely have, well done, go on to the next question, or there's nothing in there. So when I would go yes or no, it would stay on that page and I'd have to click next. Now I can just say yes, yes, no, no, yes, no, yes, no, bang, done.
Yeah.
It's really slick.
Yeah. I noticed that when I was playing with it the other day, where when I actually went yes or no, I hit yes, and then it just kind of scooted along. I'm like, oh, that's nice. That should save. We're all about saving time, whether it's in the office or in the field. And if we can save time by just automatically going to the next question, then why not? It just saves the technician one more click, and it's just one less thing the technician has to complain about having to use an app. So that's great. Yeah, makes it a bit more of an easy sell for us as trainers and for you as a business owner or an ops coordinator or whoever you may be. So Daz, I reckon there's one more. What's that last one, my friend, before we move on to a couple of features we missed?
So we've got the cost center date format, which I skipped over. That basically, it's a very small change. Instead of saying 10/6/2020, it's going to say the 10th of June 2020. Makes it look a bit easier to understand. And if you're from another country that messes with the date format, no one's going to misinterpret that. And we've also got the job name. So before, we generally had the cost center name showing in various places like site history. Now we're going to have the job name showing, which I think is extremely important because that's often got some key data in there. So when you're looking back at different jobs completed on that site, you'll see the job name as well as work notes and the technician that went out there as well, which is great.
Yep, that job name's becoming more and more powerful as the features start rolling out. It was a really nice thing just to be able to put it in. Now it's in the table. Now it's everywhere. It's on invoices. It's on quotes. It's in the mobile app. If you're not using it, you're missing out big time. Really nice quick snapshot as to what the job is. Like defect work may, for example, that could pretty much be it, or it could be broken compressor or switchboard tripping or whatever it may be. A really, really, really good feature. So we're going to move on to a couple of other little features that, in retrospect, Daz and I both watched our part 1 and part 2 video, and we thought, oh, crikey, we missed these 2 really cool features. So we wanted to sneak them in somewhere, and what better place to sneak them in than a mobile update video. So we're going to talk about the pause button to start off with, because the pause button's pretty cool. And I'll leave probably one of my favorite ones till last. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the pause button, Daz? What's the geo with this guy?
Sure can. So apparently our 6.5 hour mobile session wasn't long enough to have these included in it. So what you used to have to do before with Connect is you'd have to type your data in. Let's say you're on a maintenance job. It's not time critical and an emergency job comes in. I would need to fill out what I can fill out, go to the last page, a submit page, choose something to submit it as, like, job still in progress or something like that, click submit, wait for it all to update. And I had to go to all these different screens, but now there's a pause button that's on the main screen. So when you open your job and you're filling out your work notes, on that same page is actually a pause button. So if you click pause, it essentially stops the job, stops the timer, and it puts in a particular status code that you want it to, and allows you to then quickly start the next job and start travel, and off you go. And then when you come back to this job, you can just hit start work again like you normally would and continue on. So it's a very quick way of stopping the job, stopping the timer, syncing what you've done so far with the main system and allowing you to start the next job. Just a note on that is it will only work and it will only show up for you if you actually create a status, and the status has to have the type of pause. So there's a start, a stop, and a pause option within mobile statuses. You have to make sure that you select pause, or that button can't even be used. It's just grayed out. So if you're clicking it and it's not doing anything, that's probably why. Go into your mobile settings.
Yep. So what I'll do, I'll actually, as we're discussing this, I'll just embed a video over the top of this just to show where it is, because it's probably not obvious. Anyway, over there. So it's probably not super obvious where to go to set that pause button up in the statuses. So I'll just embed a quick little video over the top just to show you where it is. But it's a good one. So what's the last one we're going to chat about, Daz?
Auto travel schedule rate and billable / non-billable for travel.
I like this one.
Yeah, tell us about it.
Sure, why not? So this one essentially lets you now dictate the schedule rate against the travel time. So I know I'm being a bit technical when I'm talking about some simPRO jargon, but essentially what you can do is you can go and set up, let's just say that the example is I hit start travel, I then get to site, I hit start work. Now, it's not a real uniform decision from one company to the next what they do with that travel time. Some people bill it, some people don't bill it. Some people want it captured as a timesheet submission, but don't want to bill it. So you've now got the choice really whether you are or are not going to bill the travel time to site with the job. So what you can do in simPRO is create a schedule rate and call it maybe travel. Within that schedule rate, you can use that little slider to say whether the schedule rate is billable or not. And then inside the mobile setup, you can then go in there and assign that schedule rate to the travel submission, which is a really, really cool feature. So it's now catering for more workflows, whether you do or do not bill for the travel, but still being able to capture that travel against the technician's timesheet as hours worked. So you don't have to muck around with, having to add in stupid activities and having all these blank things all over the schedule and having to go back at the end of the day and filling it up with all these activities all over the joint, makes the job profitability more accurate because you actually do have time scheduled against the job. You don't have all these non-billable activities sitting in there. The technician's productivity rate is correct. It's a much more efficient way to go about it. Have I missed anything in that, Daz?
I think it's pretty good. So if you want to, you can set the default to cost to the job, but not charge the customer. You can set the default to cost to the job, but just charge the customer normal time as you normally would. Or you can set a default so that the cost goes to the job, but you charge the customer a different labor item that might be just separated just purely so that you can track how many hours or the customer can have that separated on the bill. Or maybe you actually charge a different dollar value on that labor rate. So exactly as Adz said, it just gives you so much in the way of customization for you and your business in how you want to deal with that travel. I think it's really good, and it's automated. You do it in the settings. As long as they hit start travel and then start work, it will do what it needs to do with that quarter hour, half hour, 1 hour travel time.
Totally. I mean, one of the tricky things, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink it. So obviously, if your technicians aren't using the app correctly by pressing the right buttons, that's going to be an internal thing you'll have to have a bit of a chinwag with them about. But ultimately, the technology is now there to accommodate your workflow. It's now up to your guys in the field to do the right thing and use it correctly.
Absolutely. So I think that pretty much wraps up everything we wanted to discuss. We covered what's new in Mobile 5.4, and we added in what the pause button is, and also the auto travel rate, which can be billable or non-billable to your customer. Anything else to add, Adzy?
No, that's it. I think we've kind of exhausted our audience over the last month or so with really long videos. So it's nice to have a really short, sharp one for them just to quickly knock out.
Absolutely. All right. So until the next video, that's all from us. I'm Darren Whitby, and you can reach me for any sales inquiries. If you know anyone that could use simPRO, just get them to contact me, Darren at platinumconsultants.com.au. And what about you, Adzy?
Thank you. Any training related inquiries or any simPRO related inquiries, get in contact with me at info@amak.consulting. And you can still email us to simprochats@gmail.com if you wanted to send through some feedback or be featured on a video. That'd be awesome. We've had a few emails filter through with a few requests. So we are looking at them, and we're planning on hopefully tackling those requests in upcoming videos in the not too distant future. So thank you so much for watching again. It's been an absolute pleasure. So until the next one, bye.
Bye for now.